All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL props video. Going to be breaking down the top prop bets here for this Thursday night showdown between the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens. Let's go ahead and get into it. So, guys, this is definitely a pretty interesting game. We have Lamar Jackson coming back, and we have the Miami Dolphins coming in off of a really shocking win against the Atlanta Falcons, and just how they won was shocking. Their defense was really good against the Falcons, and the offense was very much productive against the Falcons defense that had been very good stopping opposing quarterbacks. And what's also crazy is that week, Tua Tagovailoa mentioned how he was having trouble seeing over his offensive lineman, which was making him just struggle overall as a quarterback. And then on top of that, he had like an eye issue as well, where he could barely see out of one of his eyes. And that ended up being like his best game of the year. So just kind of crazy stuff there. On top of that, okay, the Dolphins are very poor at stopping opposing running backs. Could end up being the Derrick Henry game. And then the flip side of that is the Baltimore Ravens have been pretty poor stopping opposing quarterbacks and receivers. So we do have some spots to attack this slate. What we're going to know is game total wise is the total is at 50.7 points on average. So it is expected to be a higher scoring game as well. Now, with Lamar Jackson back, we are going to see that the Ravens are 7.5 point favorites. So betting slip wise, obviously we're going to have to make some bets based off that game script. Now let's go ahead and just take a peek at this game and seeing if we're getting any plus EV bets here for you guys that bet there. On flip, if anyone bets there, you could bet on the Miami Dolphins money line. There's a little bit of an edge there. You could potentially do under 50 points on a low vig. Not necessarily a great bet there. No real big edges when we're looking at like any sort of plus EV spots for us. So guys, I want to start with this bet here for Zay Flowers. Now I'm showing you guys it on the PrizePicks cheat sheet just to show you guys kind of how crazy the underdog line is that we are getting at 16. So that is adjusting for full point PPR scoring. If you actually look at the underdog line, and we'll pull it up here, it's at 13.35 on underdog. Now we know that touchdowns are fluky. So this is basically a bet on him not to score a touchdown. We do see the likelihood for him to score a touchdown is not as low as you would really want for sure. But even still, we're basically betting on him not to score a touchdown with the increased payout of it being a standard payout. So I don't mind that. I do really love the talent of Zay Flowers as a whole. I do want to make that clear. Lamar Jackson being back, though, is double-sided, okay? You could see Lamar Jackson just scrambling the football more, which could lead to bigger plays downfield for Zay Flowers. But the amount of targets could also be limited. It's a balancing act. Like Zay Flowers, great talent. It just means the offensive production could be a little bit more random with Lamar Jackson back. But overall, he's obviously a big boost to the offense, which I think is why we're seeing the touchdown likelihood be not as crazy for him not to score a touchdown as we would probably want for this bet. But overall, that is a bet that did stand out to me a decent amount here. And then when we just look at the underdog prize or underdog optimizer here, guys, yes, it has a 55% chance to hit. Again, we're betting on him not to score a touchdown. Now, we are getting a very similar bet with Mark Andrews as well, where it's basically the exact same bet, where you could end up betting on him to not score a touchdown as well, which actually bodes well with the bets that I want to attack in this slate, where it's going to be more of a Derrick Henry game, I'm assuming. And so I kind of want to attack the Derrick Henry prop bets a little bit more. So those two bets, I am comfortable using. They're under fantasy scores, knowing that I'm going to be betting on Derrick Henry. Now, if you don't think it's going to be a Derrick Henry game, you obviously wouldn't want to probably place these bets, because that means there's a greater likelihood that Zay Flowers and or Mark Andrews have a good game. And so a bet that I actually like, where the data is not actually telling us to bet it, would be Derrick Henry to get over his fantasy points of 15.3 or so on underdog. Okay, we see the average sports line in the projection data adjusting for the underdog scoring closer to about 13.84. The reason why I like it is obviously due to the matchup here with the Miami Dolphins. A lot of people are betting on Derrick Henry to get over 90.5 rush yards. I don't hate that. I think if I was actually betting on Derrick Henry, though, I might want to just rather get to his over rush attempts. This is a game where, I expect Lamar Jackson to play a good game, and I expect him to, look good. But still, you're going to want to get Derrick Henry carries like you've wanted to get him carries over the last two games. And this is by far a phenomenal matchup against the Miami Dolphins. The standard line is at 18.5. I'd be fine betting on the over there. If you want to, increase the payout a little bit, obviously increase the risk. I don't mind taking on the risk there for Derrick Henry at about 20.5 rush yards. I think that ends up being a decent route to go there with him, because logically speaking, I think that is the way you attack them, especially given the fact that they are 7.5 point favorites. That's not too crazy of a lead where we're worried about a blowout that much. So Derrick Henry should still get the carries in that somewhat of a close game. And then we do need to talk about the Miami pass catchers as well, guys. So if we are expecting the Ravens to be playing with the lead, we probably are going to want to target some of the Miami pass catchers for their overs. Okay, I like the idea of getting to Malik Washington for over 3.5 receptions. That overall should end up being a pretty good bet for us, guys. So Washington on the season is averaging about 57% of the snaps. Over the last 2 weeks, 64 and 62%. That's with not John Smith. That's with Darren Waller getting injured. So it kind of makes sense why they would go with 11 personnel a little bit more, which is obviously where Malik Washington's going to get a little bit more playing time. He has been someone that has gotten a decent amount of targets as well over the past 4 weeks, guys. So 5 targets, 8, and then 5. He's someone that targets should directly lead to receptions because he's not getting that many air yards. A lot of his targets are coming at the line of scrimmage. So I don't mind the idea of doing over 3.5 receptions. This is a good matchup for the Miami Dolphins receivers. A matchup where on average, Baltimore's given up 4.6 receptions to opposing receivers, 10 touchdowns, and about 53 receiving yards. This is like the third easiest matchup for opposing receivers. So you could end up getting to Malik Washington as well for over 27.5 receiving yards. But if you're doing that, you'd be better off doing his over 26.5 on PrizePicks. A slight difference there. But overall, I don't mind that. Again, game script wise, it makes sense. And we need to talk about Jalen Waddle as well. Waddle is someone that should end up gaining a lot of targets in this game here. If you want to bet on his over receiving yards, you do that more so on underdog. I liked getting to his over receptions as well, though. It just ends up being which site do you want to bet on him? On PrizePicks, they have him at 5. On underdog, you can get a lower payout up at 4.5. I think I'm going to end up just taking the lower payout at 4.5. Waddle's getting an 81% snap share, which is obviously great. In the one game against Cleveland, we really weren't expecting a good game from him. Only 1 target in that game. Cleveland's a tough matchup. Besides that, guys, over the last 4 weeks, excluding that game, 9 targets, 8 targets, and 6 targets. So with Tyreek Hill being out, he has firmly been the receiver 1. And then obviously with Darren Waller being out, that's also going to help out Jalen Waddle a decent amount. Again, negative game script, good matchup. I expect him to be able to get to over 4.5 receptions somewhat easily. And then I do want to call it just Tanner Conner, guys. If this game is a game where Miami is playing from behind, having to throw the football more, Tanner Conner is more of the pass catching tight end, would be the one that's on the field. I think we could get a standard line from of 1.5 receptions. If we do, I'd want to bet on his over 1.5 receptions. It's a little bit too early in the week for us to get that. That'd probably be one that comes out closer to game time. And let's go and get into Tua Tagovailoa here. So I don't mind the idea of getting to his over passing yards, guys, just because of the matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. Again, it's a pretty good matchup for the passing game. On average, guys, the Ravens are giving up 259.6 passing yards per game. If Tua can't get this over, that's pretty eye-popping. Now, if we look at his game log, it is pretty ugly, right? But in a way, I'm encouraged by what he did. Atlanta's a good pass defense. Cleveland's a good pass defense. Chargers, you would have wanted a little bit more. Carolina's not a terrible pass defense as well. Jets, not terrible, okay, but this is by far the best matchup that he has gotten thus far this season. And actually, a bet that I like a little bit more than that would be his over 14.5 for his fantasy score, because if he's having a good day passing the football, as he should, I think we could just get to his over 14.5 for his fantasy score. Now, it is worth calling out the data is telling us this is going to be a little bit more of a push here on PrizePicks for over 14.5 for his fantasy score, but underdog has it much higher. The average sportsbook line is having it basically as a push. The projection data also has it closer to about 16 as well. Again, PrizePicks and underdog scoring are 1-for-1 swaps for quarterback scoring, so that ends up being a pretty darn good spot for us, I think. If you want to bet on his overs, I think this ends up being a good route to go for him. And then I want to talk about the line that we're getting here for Achane here on underdog. Okay, so I like his Achane's over rush yards of 56.5 on underdog. Now, if it gets up to 59.5, where it should be, I think we could be a little bit hesitant about it. But a stat that I'll give out to you guys is based off of Achane's expected workload, which let's put it about 65% of the snaps. If he gets that, he should get it roughly around 67 rush yards based off the matchup with Baltimore. Again, I think at 59.5, we'd maybe be a little bit hesitant to get to it because Achane is someone that could get a reception out of the backfield that could be ruled as a rush. There's little things like that can happen with him. Instead of it being a toss play, maybe gets a little pop pass and going in front. Yeah, they use him in unique ways to the point where you can't always accurately project him, whether or not some of his plays are going to be rushes or receiving yards. But The Ravens do give up a decent amount of rush yards to opposing running backs, and obviously Achane has been the best player for the Miami Dolphins. What we don't like with this bet specifically would be that Jalen Wright started to get some more snaps, 15% of the snaps, and then Ollie Gordon, 31% of the snaps. But prior to the final drive of that game, Achane actually had 74% of the snaps. So the 65% of the snaps that I'm giving you guys as like a baseline could actually end up being a little bit too low. And if we look at it, guys, it's strange. Like Achane has been consistently getting this over as well. And this ends up being, again, a pretty darn good matchup for him. So I'm a little bit surprised really by the lines that we're getting here. So over 56.5 ends up being a good bet here. All right, guys, so before we get in the bet of the day, I do want to call it the 9 to 5 membership. It is available for $10 a month. Gives you access to a bunch of tools, guys. So prop betting tools for PrizePicks and Underdog, as well as plenty of other sports books that are included under the basketball tab for NBA. Plenty of other tools there for DFS. Same thing with NFL, and then same thing with golf as well, guys. All those are available for you guys for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. Take advantage of that. It's a great deal. And so we go ahead and get in the bet of the day. I'm just going to show it to you guys on Underdog. You guys can place these however you want. Obviously, I'm okay taking the reduced payouts for Malik Washington and Jalen Waddle. I think there's a great chance that they get to their, like Malik Washington gets to 4 receptions, and there's a great chance that Waddle gets to 5 receptions. I do think I would be a little bit hesitant to bet them over that to get that additional reception as well. Great chance for it to be a push if you guys are betting that. But again, I would rather take the reduced payout and just get the bet to hit. And then Achane for over 56.5 rush yards. Again, that's just a bet that's I think is clearly wrong on Underdog right now. Much more comfortable betting it there. And then we got Zay Flowers for under his fantasy score. You could sub in Mark Andrews there as well, which is the data likes it much better. And if you guys have noticed something, the data has really been crushing the specifically under fantasy scores lately. So probably not a bad idea. I didn't want to include both of them in there just because I do think there's a good chance one of the two end up scoring a touchdown. But maybe it just ends up being a Derrick Henry game. And so if you are doing the Derrick Henry over fantasy score, I could see using the Mark Andrews one. And then Tua Tagovailoa, I don't mind his over pass yards on PrizePicks, on Underdog, but I'd rather do his over 14.5 for his fantasy score there on PrizePicks. That ends up being a better bet. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Appreciate you being here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. And if you guys would like access to any of the tools that you saw throughout this video, head on over to 9to5sports.com. Again, they're available all for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. Thanks for watching.